I was today years old when I found out that y'all want the meet cute. And
We just want a happy ending. Some people are not as socially skilled as that, just striking up conversation, right? It seems simple to most people. What does that look like?
When it comes to my dating life, I curl up in a ball. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't know what the right words are to say to somebody, how to hit on somebody without looking like a creep.
Our phones are a vehicle. They're not the end point. And so many people use these dating apps, and it's like, well, I am dating, but you're not. You're not really dating when you're on the dating app.
Hi, I'm Debbie.
I'm Caitlin. Welcome to our new podcast, Dating at Her Age. Oh, she's dating at her age?
No. It's called Dating at Her Age. Oh, those poor things. How to date in the wild. Caitlin, I'm very excited to talk about this. And this is actually your topic pitch because you are not fond of being on dating apps.
No, I don't feel natural on them. I don't like being sucked into it. And I just really think I have maybe a more traditional mindset. I don't know, just that I want to meet someone in the wild. I don't want a love story that says, oh, I just got on an app and met this person, which I know it works out great for a lot of people. And maybe that's what will happen for me. But I just think that we lost this and we don't know how to talk to each other anymore. And I just need help.
And you being in your 20s, you feel like a lot of your friends feel the same way?
Yeah, I think so. A lot of my friends are married and they found their person. But I know that the ones who are still out in the wild, we do feel this way. And we're just kind of turned off from dating apps. It's not fun.
When I first started dating after my divorce, things had totally turned around from when I was in my 20s and dating. In my 20s, this is how you met. You either met somebody, as you say, in the wild, you met them at work, maybe you connected through a friend. When I got divorced, and I've been divorced for quite some time, my friends started feeling sorry for me, and they said, you have to get on a dating app. And I resisted with every ounce of my DNA. Mm-hmm. And then I finally caved because I wasn't meeting anybody in the wild. But what does meeting somebody in the wild mean to a 29-year-old?
Well, it just means, just a natural connection that forms. You meet them through a mutual friend or at a gathering that you're at, or it's a lot easier if you went to high school with them, if you work with them or go to college. I know that that's the most common place people meet, but I'm past the high school, I'm past the college phase, so it is a lot harder for me. But just meeting someone naturally, it feels a little less forced, in my opinion. Dating
apps are so wildly popular. I think it's hard to know if you're in the wild, is that person married?
Yep.
How long have they? I've stood for hours in the paint department at Home Depot poring over samples because I was told, go to Home Depot. That's where you're going to find Mr. Right. And he's never stumbled by. And I have this massive collection of paint samples in every single color. I finally decided to recycle them and I gave up on Home Depot. I went to Lowe's for a while to hang out there. I ended up at Ace Hardware. I've gone to the gym. I've gone and sat alone at restaurants. I've been to the library, Caitlin, and I guess I think need to find other places. I am too afraid.
I think we're all too afraid. It's not just you. It's just that's the issue with today's day and age. I think we just don't know how to talk to each other anymore. And there's probably a lot of issues as people are scared. They feel like they're going to get rejected. We may not be open. I don't know. I just want to get to the bottom of it and see if we can change the game.
Our favorite psychologist in the whole wide world, Dr. Tom Golightly, is in studio with us to help us sort through how we can gain the confidence to meet in the wild. You look like you're enjoying this conversation.
I really am. Well, I've known y'all for a while now, and I was today years old when I found out that y'all want the meet cute. And
we just want a happy ending.
And I get that. I get why people would crave it. We see it. I think we hear stories, and it just sounds great in our minds. But then what does that look like pragmatically?
Yeah.
Man, that is really, really tough, and especially in this world that's increasingly distant physically. And I think we still crave that intimacy, but that term artificial intimacy is kind of being bantered about, and it's because of things like this where you can interact in some ways on these dating apps and in virtual spaces, but then what does that actually look like, and how do we ever bridge we're really actually physically together.
Yeah, one of my biggest issues with dating apps, which I refer to, is it feels shallow to me because it is very quick swipe right, left, whatever. But dating people is kind of judging people off the first impression, whatever. But it just seems shallow because it's like you can get into deep conversations, but it's just very like, hey, how are you? How's your day? What do you do? Things like that. And I really don't like it. It seems so shallow. I don't know. I don't like them.
Dr. Tom Golightly, I want to make sure our listeners know what your credentials are, which they are vast, and you have a lot of depth of experience. I know for a lot of years you worked with BYU in the sports department, Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah, and then you recently transitioned to Intermountain Health, which is a major medical provider in the Intermountain West, and also Real Salt Lake, which is a championship soccer team here in Salt Lake City. You must love soccer.
I do love soccer. I love sport. Speaking of the meet cutes, I probably met all the people I dated in some ways kind of through sport. And
yeah.
I know when I met my wife, we were actually playing a little touch football game with some kids, and I'm like, okay, I'm getting her the ball, and she's scoring a touchdown. I'm laying kids out. Like, this was awful. It was terrible of me, not great adulting, but she scored the touchdown, and that is what I was going for.
See, that works. I like it.
So help us get over our fear of just hanging out at Home Depots and Lowe's or Starbucks and hoping that Mr. Right, or I guess Ms. Right, walks through the door.
Well, I think one of the transitions that has to occur is our phones are a vehicle. They're not the end point. And so many people use these dating apps, and it's like, well, I am dating, but you're not. You're not really dating when you're on the dating app. And hearing you talk a little bit before we started recording, I'm all about a minimal interaction before we do a little bit of an in real life meetup. So, hey, okay, I'm intrigued here. I don't need to keep going back and forth. Let's go to Starbucks.
Let's just meet.
Let's just meet for a little while and see if I want to do more of that. And I think too often, and some of this is just because we've been maybe shaped into this behaviorally with social media apps and different things. We'll go back and forth in the DMs or the direct and comments and different things, and we'll go into a deep dive there in those spaces. Whereas the dating app needs to not be as how do I want to say
it's prominent.
So frequent.
It's prominent. Mm-hmm. It takes over and it becomes a default. And I love what you just said. Go, move quickly off the dating apps and then safely into a quick meetup so you can see if there is a connection.
I know my daughter is in college still, and so that has more maybe natural physical run into people types of things. But even as she dates, I'm like, don't do the long first date. Baskin Robbins is a great first date, right?
Yeah.
So,
something simple.
And it doesn't have to be, I got to spend a night with this person that I just connected with on this dating app. Just go for a few minutes and see if it goes.
So I love this because when you were saying that it's a vehicle, but we're drowning in this vehicle because we're spending weeks and weeks and weeks chatting with men on these dating apps. And probably the longest relationship I've had on a dating app, which wasn't very long, is we were messaging back and forth, and he wanted to meet me that day. That day, it was restaurant, public setting, very busy place, and we met there, kind of in the middle.
Perfect.
Straight to business.
And we were there for about an hour, maybe a little longer, and then we started seeing each other more and more after that. But what I loved about that is I didn't feel like I was drowning in weeks of messages.
Right.
And that's what becomes so frustrating about these dating apps. I'm not getting into the wild because I'm stuck on a dating app.
Well, the metaphor I like to use, and I've used this before, is it's like snack food. Your interaction virtually is like snack food, and I love Doritos. Who doesn't love Doritos? But if I eat Doritos all the time, I'm going to get sick. I'm not going to get the nutrition I need. It's not going to nourish me the way that I need to be nourished. Whereas, and that's the app. The app is the Doritos, right?
Yeah.
If I really want something, I got to I do like Doritos, but okay. now I need a sandwich. Now
Yeah.
I
You need to go to the
some other
store
things, right?
and be seen in
Yes.
public and actually collect more food.
And I like this little taste because I want to connect. So I enjoy it, but
Yeah.
let me put it down and let me go do something different.
I feel like that story that you just told, Deb, it seems like almost a more natural interaction of like, oh, I saw this person in public, I got their number, and now
That's how it felt.
and I'm like, I'd be okay with that, but I'm
That's how I
also
felt.
just kind of bad at keeping up on the
Well,
apps.
I was very impressed with that move. I wasn't expecting it, and
Yeah.
it felt like exactly what you described. Like I was standing in a grocery store line, bumped into somebody that I might have a connection with. We exchanged phone numbers, and then we went and sat down and had a quick cup of coffee. That's exactly how it felt. You said something too earlier, Dr. Tom, that really caught my attention. And you said people who you dated over the years before you got married, and even your wife, you met at a place that you felt really comfortable, which is, at a sporting event, or playing flag football and pushing small children out of the way so your future wife would be able to score the touchdown and be the hero.
Show up on background checks from now on, but
we know what you mean. You were just trying to impress her, right? You were trying to get her attention. But being in places that we feel comfortable with, that was an aha moment for me, and I don't do enough of that to put myself. And when I go hiking, for example, I'll go with a girlfriend, and sometimes, even though I shouldn't, I go alone on trails that I know but I'm by myself. I'm not really meeting anybody.
Right. Well, and I think that's also important when we're talking about trying to meet people in real life. I don't think I would go to places that don't interest me. So I spend a little time in Home Depot, but that's not my jam, right? Like DIY projects freak me out, right? So I'm and if that's something that you're interested in, that type of person or the personality that would be involved in that, great. But I do think it needs to be a little bit more organic if you're gonna what spaces do you want to be in, right?
Yeah.
And I think back to some even kind of maybe not as important dating partners that I had early on in life. It was meeting at a haunted house. It was, meeting at this high school, like a bunch of high schools are getting together to have a dance, that kind of thing. And I think that's something that organically is harder these days.
Yeah.
Yes.
It seems like we don't have the big shared experiences like we used to. We might go to a concert every once in a while or something like that. But it felt like every month growing up, and I wasn't here in the state of Utah, but there was a big gathering where I could go meet a lot of different people,
Right.
and it was just happening. And I don't know if that's just partly the virtual component, but also COVID and all those different things that we've experienced. We just aren't having these massive gatherings like we used to and bumping into people organically in spaces that are important to me.
And I think that that's actually part of the reason why I think maybe it's not just the younger generation, but I know that Gen Z specifically, but I'm 29. I'm not really Gen Z. We want.
Oh, you might be. Sorry.
I'm in the middle. I'm on the cusp.
You're a
I'm
tweener.
a millennial. I say this a lot. I have to defend myself, but I'm on the cusp. But I feel like my mindset is in this, I don't want to be on the dating apps thing. But I think we are craving such like an in-person connection because we've been so accustomed to the digital world, which I think that it was great when it started because I grew up with it and I was super interested in it. And now I'm just like, I want the real stuff back. I don't want this artificial, like what you called it, and it's just hard. And even when I go to like concerts and stuff like that, like, cause that is my jam. I love concerts. I have a hard time staying up late now, but I like concerts. I like bookstores, I like coffee shops. I get kind of scared in those situations, like talking to other people at times, like concerts specifically, like, is this guy gonna kill me? I don't know.
What do I say?
What I mean?
What's an opening line?
And they're different situations all the time. But if I'm at a coffee shop and I see a guy that I could be interested in, like there's all the questions like, is he single? Is this like, I'm not going to talk to him. Do you feel like the younger generation or maybe just people in general have kind of lost communication skills a little bit? Or are we afraid?
If I can ask you a question, what's the fear in going and talking to that person?
I mean, I don't know. I'm socially uncomfortable, probably.
I'm not afraid
a lot of the time.
I think we're afraid of getting shut down.
Yeah, rejection. I'm not necessarily.
I might be putting words in your mouth,
yeah,
but
you're probably right.
I
That's
think
there.
the fear of rejection is huge, even for somebody who's not 29, like somebody who might be in their late 50s. What are your thoughts, Dr. Tom?
So generally speaking, not just with this issue, but lots of issues in general, I would say that we do this a lot. We empower our emotion to make the decision. And what's happening is emotions are temporary. They're a short-term thing. But when we empower fear, worry, sad, whatever emotion that we're experiencing to make the decision, what we tend to do is we pull ourselves away from the things that we really value. And when we're making more value congruent decisions, things that are aligned, like intentionally making this decision, like I am afraid of getting shut down, but I also want to meet someone in real life. Okay, what's the value that you hold? If that's what you want, then I can't let the fear make my decision. I've got to let my values make my decision. Mm-hmm. And so it's really important in those moments to make that. And are you going to get rejected sometimes?
Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah.
I guess deep down you probably are afraid of rejection. Maybe in my mind I'm also like, the guy's supposed to come up to me, so I'm just sitting here waiting like I'm available. But that's a traditional mindset. It doesn't have to be.
That is,
it's just how
I think you hit
the
yeah. What do you think about that, Dr. Tom? I think she just nailed it.
I think in our brains, I think genders believe that. And I also know a lot of men that are of dating age that will not approach someone unless they know what's going to happen.
See, and that's
because they're scared too.
I
They
get
are
that.
just as
It's
scared.
valid because I think girls can be, snobby. I probably am not one of them, but I can probably look closed off when I'm sitting alone at the
Sure.
coffee shop.
But you just said something that it's just another light bulb moment for me, and that is that men are probably just as afraid of women as women are of rejection in moments like this.
I don't want to paint too broad a stroke for my entire gender, but yes, I think, and maybe even more.
Tell us more.
Well, the pressure's on them.
Yes, they are worried about that rejection and what it says about them, and just the fear of hurt, and that's something that I think pulling back even a little bit from the dating scene, we're worried about failure, and whether that's in dating, in work, in school, or whatever it is, that fear of failure really drives a lot of decision making, and we're avoidant in some ways of ever putting ourselves in a place where we might fail. And so taking risk in general, even small interpersonal risk, like let me just strike up a conversation in a coffee shop, becomes daunting because we're not equipped to kind of manage those failures as they show up, which is why empowering that emotion makes it really difficult to be satisfied. We have to be intentional about engaging through that value. And work through an ability to say, okay, what does that mean? That someone that I don't know says no, thank you. Like, okay,
Yeah, it's not that
fine.
personal.
That's
It's fine.
actually not terrible.
So that works for men and women.
Yes.
I'm just gonna shoot my shot, and
Yeah,
if it
shoot your
doesn't
shot.
it doesn't work out, I didn't know this person anyway. I'm just gonna go about my day, and I tried.
Yeah.
And I'll try again.
You said something about like just striking up conversation, right? It seems simple to most people. What does that look like? Because I feel like once you get into the setting of like, oh, I'm in a coffee shop, I'm sitting here alone with my coffee, I see someone, and you want to walk up to them, but you freeze. I need a line. Like I need a good galaxy or like a Rolodex of lines to use, or just conversation starters. Because I am socially uncomfortable.
I think it's really important to be observational and just do something quippy, like what is happening. For example, if you're in line, all right, what's your go-to?
Yeah,
I need to
okay.
know your go-to.
Oh,
Here.
we should have.
That's
so
a good
if
one.
you're lying, are you suggesting that we should have like some lines prepared when we walk
I think
into?
for me that would help.
I'm a little more ad lib in
I
my
am-
life.
So
but-
could you say something? Could I say
having
something?
a good icebreaker bandwidth would be good.
So
Yeah.
Sure.
you could say something like, if I'm in line behind a man who's standing in line, maybe there's some at the grocery store. There's some food on the conveyor belt. There probably is. I could say, "Oh, I love sushi. Yeah,
See,
I
I'm
like
awkward.
sushi too." How's that $5 sushi here at the grocery store? You know what I mean? I mean, that would be.
I can see how it naturally
Is that a
could
good
come up,
way to
but-
kind of have some fun with an icebreaker?
I
Is that
think that's fine. I think my go-to would be, how did you get past the the nastiness of the nori. Like I can't do that. Like I can do sashimi just fine, but no.
See, some people are not as socially skilled as that. Well, we're just like, you see that dog over there? It's cute. Like, which that's a good conversation, but it's just like there's a flower on the window.
So this takes me back to a time when there was a really attractive man standing in front of me at a grocery store, and I think he'd run in. It looked to me like he'd run in maybe during the lunch hour to grab a sandwich. I mean, this is one of those grocery stores that you get a really amazing sandwich at. They make it fresh. There's not a long line at the deli counter. He's standing in front of me in line, and he can't find his wallet. So I say, it's on me, thinking this would be the perfect icebreaker. He turned to me. He's like, thank you. He leaves, never see the guy again.
Wow.
It wasn't even an offer to, hey, can I Venmo you back the money?
Bye.
What's your phone number? Can I send you $10 in the whatever? I mean, it was nothing. I was ghosted in the moment.
Great effort.
It was a good
Yes,
effort.
I applaud.
But you have to be prepared to get a nothing burger out of a moment like
That's
that.
okay.
Well, and I think in those moments when we're scared of that even initial rejection, we're quick to internalize that and own it as our responsibility. Well, guess what? Caitlin's mentioning I'm awkward. Well,
And that's great, but
and so are others.
Yeah, I know.
Right? And so I don't know if this man was like, what just happened? Wow, this really cool woman just bought this. Like, and there might have just been a freeze moment in his brain that he's like, I don't know what to do right now. No, maybe not. But I think we over-own that responsibility for the failure in those moments instead of just kind of saying, no, this is their issue just as much as it's my issue.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let them have that moment.
What is it about somebody, and I am guilty as charged, makes them great on the professional level, but it really kind of all thumbs when it comes to initiating a conversation with people that we might want to have a date with in the wild?
Well, I think there are a couple of differences. One, especially what I see with people that are getting a little bit older in the dating pool that are really successful and competent and smart. They're used to having those successes. So there's a lot of efficacy with, I can have a tough business conversation. I know how this is going to play out. And even if it's difficult, it doesn't attack me. It's business. Okay,
it's
that didn't go well,
transactional.
but, that doesn't mean anything about me as a person or me as a worker even. But when we switch that to the personal setting, it's like, oh, this is a threat to who I think I am, who I see myself as, how I interact with the world. So it becomes that those conclusions that we're making from the data that's right in front of us are a little more punishing and a little more difficult to kind of figure out and what it says about us.
Yeah, that may be why, like in a professional setting, I feel like I'm not awkward. Like you've told me that you don't think I'm awkward, but like
You're not.
I am in social settings.
Not
I've gotten a
awkward.
lot better, but like ask any of my friends. I was a quiet, awkward, shy girl because I just don't know how to interact. And I still kind of get like that. Like I don't know how to flirt with someone or do any of this in like in a social setting. But like I kind of have like a persona when I'm in career mode, and I'm just kind of like.
You just get the job done.
Yeah, I'm here to do a job, and I can talk to you about this situation, but I'm not. It's not a personal thing where I feel like I have to be vulnerable at the end of it. You know what I mean? So that might be a lot of it too, is we're afraid of vulnerability.
I'm the same way professionally. Just being a journalist, a reporter for the majority of my career, I was dogged about getting an interview and wouldn't be afraid of knocking on somebody's door if I needed to get to the bottom of the story, or walking beside them with the camera, photographer right beside me, getting that interview and asking those questions. But when it comes to my dating life, I like curl up in a ball. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't know what the right words are to say to somebody, how to hit on somebody without looking like a creep. And I guess what I'm hearing from you, Dr. Tom, is you have to get over the fear of rejection in the moment. I think that was key for me. And also what was key for me and what you said earlier was don't drown in the dating apps. You could almost use that as a vehicle to go meet people in the wild. As long as you're not on that app for 2 or 3 weeks trying to connect with somebody, you can be up on the app with them, communicating back and forth for a couple of hours and go meet with them. And that's a great way to connect kind of in the wild.
Takes off some of the pressure of the apps for me too.
Well, and I think you can get lost in that. The dynamic of the interaction becomes virtual if you're on there too long. And so then meeting up in real life becomes this big thing. And it doesn't have to be a big thing, especially if you introduce it a little bit earlier on. One thing that I've noticed as I hear you both talking a little bit is how how do I want to say this? You're kind of bugged at yourselves for your quirks.
100%.
And I'm like, wait. Like, make that go to your advantage. Awkward? Funny, awkward is awesome.
I embrace it, but it's just I can scare people away if you don't understand, if you're also not awkward, because the people who get it are awkward and we're not going to talk to each other.
I hear how you're talking about your worries about it. I'm like, hey, so part of it is that worry about rejection, and part of it is getting lost in the virtual stuff. But I don't think you're alone in that. I see a lot of people that are just so overly critical of their little quirks that aren't really fatal flaws, but they're seen as fatal flaws. And it's like, no, rock with what you got. It's okay. Who you are is just fine. And you know what? There's someone out there looking for the things that you're bringing to the table. And it's not judging yourself for having the little quirk.
Can I rattle off a study from Forbes in one poll that I found just fascinating, where they talk about dating app success rates. And let me bounce this off of you. It said nearly 70% of individuals who met someone on a dating app said it led to a romantic, exclusive relationship. And then they said that males are more likely to have met someone on a dating app and have it lead to an exclusive relationship, more so than females. What are your thoughts on why men are so much more successful? And it's like almost a 10% difference in success rates. First of all, given my experience, I'm shocked anybody has success on dating apps, because I'm still waiting for that moment. But what do you think is the difference between men and women's success rates on dating apps?
Well, I am wondering, and I know you've mentioned that some of the dating apps, the women have to start the conversation.
Bumble was like that for quite some time.
But because we have this dynamic in our head, and Caitlin mentioned it before, that the man is supposed to start this, I'm wondering if there is a difference between someone being more active in saying, yes, I want to start a conversation here, which is why they might be more successful. And if women are being a little more passive in that because of traditional gender role and how we see this play out, and maybe that's part of what explains that is it's expected for a man to say, let's start a conversation here. And that might be why that percentages are a little bit higher.
I have absolutely no data to back this up. This is just from my anecdotal experience for the last several years on and off dating apps. But it seems to me, men I've talked to, is they play the odds a lot better than women. They just go through it and like any woman on the dating app. So she sees that, oh, this man liked me and that I'll connect with him now. I am much more particular than that. I don't click on all of the guys hoping that I get one guy to message me back. I might click on 2 men a month. I mean, so the odds will not forever be, they will never be in my favor. So I know we're getting away a little bit from talking about dating in the wild, but if we're going to use that app as a vehicle to get ourselves out of our house and into a coffee date, do you suppose I need to be a little more open-minded? Because I sure sound like I should be more open-minded as I'm listening to myself talk.
You're allowed to be picky, but yeah, I get it.
There's that self-blame coming up again.
Exactly.
So I think going back to what I said earlier about, like, men kind of want a sure thing, right? Why are they casting that wide net? Because if you click on me, then I'm like, okay, this is a little less uncertainty, right? I know that this person might come back and interact with me at some level. So I think that's part of what you're mentioning there is they're going to cast a broad net because, if they say yes back, then okay, I kind of know what I got. And I think that is a really, really important component. Part two, just from an evolutionary psychology standpoint, Going back, when we talk about mating and all of those things, women are more selective, and that's just kind of how we've evolved, because the circumstances around, just how we date and what the consequences are for those behaviors is maybe a little graver, right? And the safety issues and all the things that we brought up, that's really important as well. So I think it's okay to be selective, but striking that balance between, okay, maybe that's a little too selective, and okay, I can't just click on everybody that I haven't.
That's part of my issue is I say I get overwhelmed on the apps, but part of it's just I'm overwhelmed by my phone because of probably the job I have. I'm on it all day. I can barely look at responding to a text after I leave work because I'm just so burnt out from looking at it. And I really do try to have a good boundary with my phone because of how much I'm on it. So when it even just is about getting on an app and talking to somebody, I don't like that it feels like a chore to me, and that's a personal thing I have to get over. And I'm better at it on the weekends, but I'm currently just trying to find that boundary, which is why I'm I don't want to do the dating apps at all. I just want to go try your method of what's your favorite coffee at this shop and maybe talk to someone. But I don't know. I think that is a good tip, and it takes the pressure off of it for me, I think I said, but because it doesn't seem like it's such a mountain to climb when you're getting on the app. It's just a quick little discussion, and I don't know. I feel like I want to make it easier for guys too, because I think it goes both ways. They have a lot of pressure on themselves.
Well, I think everyone does in the situation, which is kind of makes it difficult. Whether the other component interacting too much virtually is we don't know context.
Yeah.
I think of all the texts, even with someone that I know really well, like my spouse and my kids, and I'm something gets missed every once in a while.
You can overthink things very easily.
Exactly. And it's let's maybe reduce that. I think it takes pressure off of everybody to find that place where we go to in the wild, so to speak, that will help us connect and get to know their context better. It's just much easier that way.
I've decided in 2024 I needed to be intentional about meeting somebody not through a dating app. And in large part, this was through trial and error on dating apps. I wasn't finding the connection. And I know that Caitlin and I have talked about this for a while now. I feel like the pool of men at my age is going to be a lot shallower than the pool of men at her age. So there just aren't that many 50-year-old single men who live, within a 100-mile radius of where I live. And I'm not very interested in a long distance relationship. So it really narrows the field of options. So I've been much more intentional about getting in the wild. Let me just bounce a couple of things off you that I've done is I've been going to more events. For example, my townhome and actually, entire community where I live gets together pretty frequently. And there's lots of different events that are hosted there that are free to get into. So I've been going to those. Also, some of my neighbors will host events every 6 to 8 weeks. There'll be a different house to go to have hors d'oeuvres and get to know each other. I have been going to those. They're free and they're fun. And if anything, you get, even if I don't get a husband out of it, I get some new friends out of it. And then I've connected with my female friends for different groups because I'm thinking they've got a brother my age. They have an uncle who's a great guy that they're going to want to connect me with. I do it because I want that connection anyway. And the women I hang out with are smarter than me and they inspire me. But I am sometimes a little tired and I think I'm not going to go. I don't want to go. I don't want to get involved in something else. And I'm forcing myself to do it for the human connection, the female connection, and then thinking, well, I am putting myself out there in the wild to maybe have somebody connect me to somebody.
You bring up a really good point that I think is important in dating and in all the things. Our work cycle, you brought this up too, Caitlin, on my phone, we are tired. And so some of the I don't want to meet in real life from not just the people in this room, but everyone is, I'm tired. And we work a lot. And our work weeks have extended. I remember I was a kid in the 80s. I'm a true Gen Xer, if we can go, if we're going for labels. And I remember the discussion a little bit. I always kind of was interested in the news and was kind of paying attention to things broadly. We talked about the Japanese work week and in America, and we were just like appalled at how much they work. We're working more than the Japanese were in the 80s.
Oh.
Like we are working. And so when we talk about, okay, well, I do have social needs. I do have needs outside of work. Sometimes we're tired, and that's real.
Really relate to this because I'm just like one of my big things that's going on in my head right now is like I don't go a lot of places. I try to every now and then. My friends sometimes get me out and it's good, but like I really go to work, go to the gym, and I go to sleep. Like that's my life most of the time, at least during the week. Sometimes I get out on the weekend, but I need to put myself out in more places, but it is a battle.
Different places. And I mean, I'm not afraid to go places by myself. I mean, sometimes if it's like hiking, I'm a little nervous about that, but just going to a coffee shop, I love going alone. You don't have to hike alone. That's
really
going to get you nowhere. But
it's just,
I'm thinking my
lot.
kids I'm just thinking back, there's a gift certificate on my fridge for an art class, and I've been
that
meaning
sounds
to
fun.
take that. And I'll meet new people that way. I've thought about taking a couple of college classes, even though I'm a little burnt out. But
maybe we should do it together.
Just don't do
then we
coding.
have a friend,
not the
and
coding
we'll get
class.
each other out because we have to commit to it.
Think about all of the places, either the gym or outside the gym. Pottery classes.
This is what I want to do. I just don't have time.
Baseball games together as friends. There's lots of options there.
When we talk about being intentional, as you mentioned earlier, I think that is a really important thing is when we're tired, and I was talking before about emotion making decisions and how that pulls us away from our intention and value congruent living. Our physical exhaustion can do that too. And I can't remember a time when I kind of willed myself to do something, even though I was tired, where I didn't enjoy it. And some of it is just kind of getting ourselves and saying, I'm tired, but I want to take the class.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go take the class because that's what I want. And I know that's what I want, even though my temporary experience is telling me stay.
Yeah, I agree
I gotta
with
get
that.
through that.
Most of the time I don't regret that. I got asked to go to the Jesse McCartney concert that was here, and I said no because even though I would have had a great time, I was too tired. I don't think I missed my husband at that event, but I'm just saying it's just one example because the concerts keep me up a little late. I have to pick my poison.
We can go down these rabbit holes emotionally because we aren't meeting anybody on dating apps and we're standing for hours at Home Depot looking at paint samples, hoping the right person walks in. What's your best Dr. Tom advice for these moments when we're feeling lonely and frustrated by the dating experience?
That, going back a little bit, that it's not a reflection on you. That you can put yourself out there and you're wonderful. You're a catch. And other people are walking around with their issues as well. And I think too often when we're lonely, when we are not experiencing that success in whatever venue in dating, we own the responsibility and say it's something about me. But it isn't. Almost never is it about you. It's just about circumstance. And it's about everyone's got issues showing up, to the party, and we can't own the responsibility for other people and their hesitancy to engage. And so it's to not make that conclusion that there's some fatal flaw in me that I'm not meeting anyone, and to continue that consistent engagement. That's going to lead to that eventual connection.
Do you have, any sort of advice about how women or anyone really, but can be more energetically open, I guess, like in settings? Because I know that I've said this, like that I'm kind of like in my head and I might be keeping myself even energetically closed off to people. But is there any like advice that you could give to probably more girls that would make us more approachable to guys to kind of take off pressure? I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, I think in the setting, it would be, I don't know if this is gender specific, but if you're wanting to meet someone in the coffee shop and you have your laptop open and headphones in and facing the corner, no one's probably coming over to you, right?
Yeah, I get
Your
that.
body language says it all.
Which that means you're there to work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm reading a book and I'm facing out, and I think how you set yourself up is really, really important there as well. Or when you go to the restaurant alone, why not sit at the bar?
Yeah.
and like just be around and be interactive and commenting on things and be engaging, right? Or you can sit in the corner booth and no one's going to see you, right?
Which brings up, your timing is perfect on this, because as our next neighborhood event approaches in the next few days, I thought about calling up one of my really good female friends and saying, hey, do you want to go with my neighborhood event with me? They're going to have hors d'oeuvres and drinks, and we're just going to walk over. It'll be a blast. But the other intentional side of me, Dr. Tom, has said, I should go alone to this and see if I can interact with people without having a friend hold my hand. Because I do feel like when I walk into an event alone, first of all, I have to absolutely give myself a gold medal for doing that. I know that Caitlin would probably give herself a gold medal for it. It's a little scary to walk into these events, even no matter how old or how young you are. But also opens myself up to meeting more people, and being a single woman there, maybe I would have more chance of meeting a guy I could start seeing. Is that too hopeful?
No,
and I
not
don't.
too
No
hopeful.
shame to my girlfriends. I do lots of things with them. I was like, maybe I need to go it alone once in a while.
Well, personally, I don't know about you, Caitlin, but I feel like we're being left out of the soirees. So I'm like, how do we get invited to these? But
they are fun.
So I don't know what neighborhood you're living in, but good job, neighborhood.
No, I love it. I think it's awesome.
But I think you're right. I think it's easy to kind of, okay, I'm going to do this, but am I doing it for the reasons I want to be doing it? Like, I can show up to the thing, but if I bring a friend, then it does get a little bit different, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I also understand if it's a less safe environment, like, hey, let's have
you got to have a buddy,
right? And
I'm all in on that.
Friends can get in your head too. You can continue.
Oh, I would agree. That's a great point.
How you're judging, like, you when you're alone, you may be like, oh, maybe I could talk to this person. I'll come up to you naturally. But if it's a group of girls, they may not be coming up to you because it's intimidating, and you may have a friend who thinks that they're like trash, and you're just like, I don't think so. They might have a chance.
I also think sometimes maybe a guy would feel sorry for me because I was standing there by myself, and he'd want to start to interact, and then the conversation. It's a two-way conversation. These are just things I think about. Like, I have been doing things the same way for the last several years that I've been dating. I'm on dating apps. I go to events with my girlfriends. I don't, always sit alone at restaurants. If I sit alone, maybe I don't sit at the bar because I'm closed off. Or I go to the other day, I was thinking I went to the coffee shop with the full-on earphones on, the ones you could clearly see with the music blaring, which totally sent the signal of leave me alone.
Which sometimes that's what you want.
I need to change my ways. Yeah. I can't be, locked in my bedroom at home with my headset on thinking that Mr. Right is just going to appear in my life. I have to do things differently.
Yes. And, returning to the question about friends, like, going back to Cortez burning the ships, so to speak, it's like, no, I'm here and I have to interact, right?
Right.
I don't have that safety net. And at times, I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, let's go see what this is about. And I know that I'm not an overly socially anxious person, but there are times even when I'll show up to a work party and I'm like, oh man, who am I going to talk to tonight? Right. And I'm not single.
And the people there.
Exactly. I work with them every day. So I connect to that. Like, okay, what's going to happen if I do that? But, being willing to be a bit uncomfortable initially to see how that plays out, I think is a really important skill to develop.
I actually think it's interesting because I think I become more of the shy girl when I'm with my friends and like have somebody else to lead. I like the comfort of them there. But when I'm alone, I'm kind of forced to like open myself up and be the one to do conversation starting. That just might be my personality.
So your fallback would be to allow your friends.
They're the ones that's going to do the talking. I'm going to be there.
They're
and
your
I'll support them,
spokesperson.
and I'll have fun with them and the people I know. And this is actually why I think I don't like going to bars and stuff anymore, whatever. But it's just because I feel like I am just in the crowd of people talking, and I'm like getting no value out of the situation at all. I mean, if I went by myself and I was there looking for something, but that's not where I'm going to try to find somebody. It's just
maybe start small.
Yeah, small is my coffee shop, and I go there anyways. But it's just I tend to fall back into my let the friends do the socializing.
There's so many groups now on Facebook, where you can get together with people with, common, goals and common hobbies. There's there's community gatherings. I mean, I think there's so many things that we can be doing to get out in the wild. We're just not doing them because dating apps have been the fallback.
Yeah.
Dr. Tom, your final thoughts. Give us a little bit of hope. What do you want to leave us with?
Or a homework assignment.
Or a homework assignment. I like that, Caitlin.
Oh, my gosh. Well, first of all, I think some of the changes we're talking about today is because convenience, right? Like our phones and virtual interaction is convenient, and it comes at us. And at times we have to say, okay, I get that it's coming at me, but what am I going to do to, going back to the word, to that intention? And I think the homework assignment would be, what do you value? What do you want from your dating experience right now? And have a clear picture of what that looks like, because then you can make all of your choices that are going to align with what you want from it right now. And I love that Deb was even able to say, here is what I'm doing in 2024. All right, then your decisions need to align with what your vision is for what that looks like in 2024. And so I think the big homework would be, know your values around what you want right now and make your decisions align with that vision.
Dr. Tom Golightly, our favorite psychologist in the whole world. Thanks for joining us for Dating at Her Age.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm going to try to go into the community more, even though I'm afraid of it.
We're going to get out into the wild. We'll get out into the wild. No, thanks for your tips. Those are great tips, and we all need good tips. So
thanks
awesome.
For having me.
Awesome
Appreciate
advice.
It.
It's time for my favorite part of the show. It's time for our Dater Hater segment. Caitlin, what do we have?
Yeah, this is our segment where we hear from all of you on your crazy dating stories. So you can give us a call at 801-575-5599. And today we have a caller with an experience, and I am just going to get in and play it.
Man or woman?
Man.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
All right. Hey there. I have a story. So I am a male. I'm now 37, but this is when I was 31. And you know what? I was the idiot in this story, so enjoy. You can laugh at my expense on this one. All right, so I was 31. I was on a business trip in New Mexico, I believe, and it was a conference, and there was only one other person at that conference my age, a girl, and we, like, around my age, and we started chatting it up. We went out to dinner that night, and she had her car there because she was semi-local to the area, so we got in her Jeep. And she was like, hey, do you want to go check out the mountains here in this part of New Mexico? And I'm like, yeah, let's go. And I'm trying to impress her. Like, I'm not an outdoorsy person, to say the least. I'm still in my, like, business casual attire from this conference. And we're driving around and we're chatting and everything like that. And all of a sudden she's like, hey, how do you feel about guns? And I was like, yeah, I own one. I feel comfortable around them. She's like, okay, good. I have one in the glove compartment, just to let you know. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Cool. Thank you for sharing that. And we're driving around, and she's like, oh, hey, do you want to go check out a trail? Mind you, it is, like, dark. It is nighttime. Again, I'm in my business attire, like, business casual attire, and I'm trying to impress this girl. And I'm like, yeah, sure, let's go for a walk. Let's go stroll through the freaking wilderness at, like, 8 o'clock at night. Yeah, no big deal. And, yeah, so we get out of the Jeep, and I'm about to get out of my side, and she's like, hey, will you grab the gun from the glove compartment? And my idiot self thinks, yeah, this is perfectly normal behavior. I didn't think twice about this whatsoever, because I am comfortable with weapons. You know, I'm all right with that. But no, in this situation, why would anybody ever do that? But no, I did. So no, I grabbed it, and I don't know how I stored it. I don't know if I put it in my pocket or my wristband, like waistband, or if I held it. I can't remember. But we're walking along, talking and everything like that, and she gets a little bit ahead of me, and she's like, let me see the gun. And I'm like, okay, here you go. Not thinking it to be. I'm an idiot, like, total, like, man, just, like, not seeing danger in anything, kind of ignorance here. And so I hand it to her, and she's a little bit ahead of me, and she's kind of, like, silhouetted by the moonlight here in the forest. And she's like, oh, yes, I forgot to tell you, And she kind of pauses. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, I'm an idiot. I'm a dead man. I'm a dead man. This is going to kill me right here. I'm an idiot. Like, they're going to write a podcast about this, like, serial killer woman and I just followed a girl into the woods with a gun, you know. And he goes, yeah, I forgot to tell you, there's bears in the woods. That's why I brought the gun. Why am I here? Why am I here? These are the dumb things that men do to try to get a date. You know, like, why did I do this? Luckily, she did not kill me. Luckily, we made it back to the Jeep and to, like, the resort hotel where I was staying alive without being shot or eaten by a bear. So, yeah, if there's a message for the fellas out there, guys, like, don't be stupid in dating either. Like, I could have been dead. You know, I could have been dead. So that's my story for y'all. Enjoy.
First off, I just want to say the way that he told that story was incredible. Just his storytelling.
Well, her intentions were clearly pure.
Yeah.
I mean, it was to protect him from a bear. Okay. Let me just say, this is the kind of stuff that women worry about all the time.
Yeah.
It's why we don't go hiking at night in the woods in business attire with men we just met at conferences.
The business attire. That's what I'm saying. The way you told that story, you emphasized the business attire. You painted the picture well. And it's like, what not to do. Don't go in the woods with someone you just met. That's probably a good rule of thumb.
So I'm a hater of hiking on the first date because of that very reason. Like, I don't know what I'm getting myself into. I mean, and if a guy told me, look, if a guy leaned over and said, hey, why don't you just grab the gun out of the glove compartment? You know what you'd see? Me running through the woods to get out of there as quickly as possible. I wouldn't stick around to figure out if there's bears in the woods. I would be out. There'd be a search and rescue operation for me the next day because I'd be hiding under a dead log somewhere just to keep myself safe from this guy.
Especially at night. That's what's even better about this story. I don't know. I'm not a hater. I'm just happy you're alive, I guess.
Well, let me tell you something.
I'm glad you can learn and share and say what not to do.
I love the story. I love that it ended okay.
Yeah.
I hate hiking on a first date. That's a huge no-go for me. There's no way I'm doing that. I had that experience that I talked about in our very first episode about being on a chairlift at a ski resort with some guy when I went skiing on a first date. And talk about being stuck on a chairlift with somebody. I wouldn't want to be stuck in the woods with anybody. So, but I'm a big hater of first dates in the woods, on a trail, in New Mexico, in Utah, in Colorado. It's a no-go for me.
I went on a hike for a first exchange, I guess, with the person who stood me up. With the person who stood me up because they got arrested.
Okay, so back up.
But it was in the daylight, and it was in my small town, so it was less intense. I'm just realizing that's actually it wasn't as deep though. I kind of knew him already.
We need a timeout and a rewind on our first
last episode.
You'd said that you had gotten stood up for a first date when a guy got picked up apparently for something to do with drugs.
He got caught with the law. I don't really know much more. I just know he got arrested.
So you were waiting at the place to meet him for the first time, and he didn't show up because he was in the clink.
I thought I got stood up, and then I got a text a couple days later from his mom.
So then fast forward to this, you decide to reconnect with him after he bonded out
of the slammer. It's not like it was an actual jail, but whenever he got released and had his rights back, he apologized. He apologized and said, "Can we meet up?" And I was like, "Sure, whatever. I can hear the story." I guess I was kind of curious. And I kind of knew him already, though, is the thing. It was in my small town. It's, a lot of people there, so I kind of knew already. And then we drove around for a little bit, I think, and then I remember going on a hike. But it wasn't like in the woods. It was like in, my small town. There's mountains down the street. It's not really a big deal. We just went out.
And it was safe.
But he could have killed me.
No,
anyone can kill you anywhere. It was all fine. Everything was fine. There was no issues. I think he was just like, I got caught up in a bad situation and stuff. So it was whatever. But I was young.
I don't remember going on a hike on a first date ever.
Don't recommend it. That one was a different situation because I kind of knew him a little bit. But definitely don't do a hike as a first date.
I went on
ever.
A walk on a first date.
A walk
on a
is
park.
kind of
It was
okay.
boring.
Yeah.
It was so
get
boring.
coffee and go walk around the park. That's fine. But if you have something else to do with it, it could be boring.
It was just, we lapped the park once. I think he was a couple of steps in front of me. It didn't go anywhere. This is the last time I ever saw or heard the guy. In fact, I mean, literally, he left the park. I never heard from him again.
Well, wasn't meant to be.
Yeah. So we're glad you survived hiking in the woods with bears and apparently a weapon. And what, you just carried it around in your pocket for her?
I mean,
what a guy.
It works. You're the one that had the control in that situation. That's our dater hater moment for the week.
Leave us your favorite dater hater stories, 801-575-5599. And you too could have your story played back on one of our upcoming episodes of our podcast.
And next episode, we will be talking about who pays for the first date.
I love this because I have a hot take on this. I got stuck with a $1,000 dating tab. Oh,
yikes. I would be done.
I was so done and so mad. That's next time on Dating at Her Age. And remember, a new podcast drops every Thursday.